worked in the burn unit on a quiet night shift. I was walking down the hall at 2 a.m. and stopped to look in on one of my patients. Over 90% of his body was burned, and he had already gone through 2 amputation surgeries since admission. He was on a circle electric bed and facing the floor at the time. I noticed a tiny puddle under his bed and immediately saw tears falling from his face. So I softly asked if I could do anything for him. He asked me to come talk to him. Since he was face down, I tossed a towel on the ground and sat on the towel so that I could see his face. He looked at me and said, "Am I going to die?" I didn't feel like I could ever answer that question, so I was honest about that and asked him what he thought. He told me that he had thought he might and shared several things that he had been thinking about. We talked for quite a while. It's almost time to turn him onto his back, so I asked him if there was anything else I could do for him. And he asked me to pray for him, so I did. We turned him and I completed my shift. Eventually, he was discharged from our unit. After living in Texas and Idaho, I moved back to Oklahoma. I discovered that one of my new friends at church was the patient's nephew and had heard about the nurse who would sit on the floor and listen to Johnny. I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to care for him. I'll never forget the lessons I learned and then had reinforced 19 years later.
Many nursing experiences have touched me, but none like my recent experience in same-day surgery. A patient came from the ER needing abdominal surgery. He was heavily sedated for severe abdominal pain, resting with eyes closed, cool to touch, with low blood pressure. Immediately concerned, I knew I needed to stay with this patient. He awoke and reported the pain in his stomach. Several factors, including my previous cardiac nursing experience, led me to ask if he had chest, jaw, arm, or back pain. He declined. Then I noticed a slight change in the readings on the monitor and got an EKG that showed he was having a heart attack. I provided the test results to anesthesia and notified the cath lab. He received stents within the standard 90-minute time limit. The patient had severe coronary artery disease and needed bypass surgery. He went to the ICU where he coded but was resuscitated. Emergency abdominal surgery was conducted with a 10% chance of survival. The surgery was a success and my patient lived. I have seen many heart attacks, but this was the first time I was the one to catch it happening. The family has since contacted me and I have visited with them several times, receiving many thanks. I know I was put in the right place at the right time to help him get the care he needed. I feel grateful to have cared for this miracle patient and for my amazing coworkers and physicians that worked together to save his life.
In my first year of emergency nursing, a 6-year-old Aiden came to the ER in the arms of his mother. Aiden had fallen out of the back of his dad's parked pickup truck. He'd hit his head, but not been knocked out. With a tiny scratch on his head, it didn't seem like much of an emergency, and the ER physician seemed barely interested. Something in my gut told me to push for a CT. When that came back normal, the feeling hadn't subsided, and I advocated for admission overnight despite the groans of the physician. Within a few hours of admission, Aiden began deteriorating. He was bleeding in his brain. The ER doctor had misread the initial scan. As this was a small facility and it was the middle of the night, he was taken back to the ER and we frantically began transfer arrangements via helicopter. I wish I could say there was a miraculous outcome of this story, but I later learned that Aiden died later the next day in a children's hospital in Dallas. His parents made the selfless decision to donate his organs. This incident has remained with me for 15 years. I learned that night that even though I was a brand new graduate nurse, my intuition trumped a medical degree. My voice mattered. We are all fallible, and we are all on the same team. I read, ask questions, and continually learn to be the very best part of the team I can be every day. I also educate, encourage, and build the rest of my team because I miss things too. And we need to rely on each other.